Today I want to talk about why I don't recommend Slava. I really don't think this ship is very good at all. And to prove that, I kind of went into a training room and decided to just shoot at broadside ships at tier 10. I think this ship is not very good in this game at all. It gave up way too much for supposed amazing dispersion. It really doesn't have that amazing dispersion. It's good, but you'll see legendary Yamatos have pretty solid dispersion similarly, and a few other ships too. It's not like this ship is a laser beam compared to those other ships. Sure, you do get faster shell arcs as well, so you don't have to lead quite as far, but this ship gives up way too much to get this supposed firepower and consistency against broadside targets. And sure, you're going to see me do citadels and get damage and all that stuff, but remember that other battleships would be doing similar damage, I think. I really believe that. Mainly because a citadel in this ship only counts for 12,100 damage, which is very low for tier 10. Considering there's ships like Shikishima, which nearly deal 20k damage per citadel. Now, that's an outlier, sure, but there's a lot of ships around that 15k mark now these days, with the 457 and 460s kind of thing. It takes one citadel in some of these ships, plus a couple of pens, to deal 2 citadels worth of damage from a Slava. So keep that in mind as well. And notice just how nothing's really getting dev struck off the map here. And these are reasonably close engagements that if you catch someone broadside, you would think, yeah, I'm going to dev strike this guy, you know? And that's not really happening here. Which is kind of sad. And that's why I really don't like this ship, is I go into games expecting this amazing dispersion because I'm giving up so much in terms of armor, gun caliber, reload, all these different things, and it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it in the end. I think that Ohio is just a better ship. Even against broadsides, I would probably take an Ohio over a Slava. So it does dev strike a Minotaur. Okay, fair enough. It can dev strike a Minotaur, you know. And it can dev strike a Yamato. Okay. So these are the usual suspects that you would think any battleship is going to dev strike them at closer ranges like this. So that's my issue, is it gives up so much to gain consistent accurate guns, and it doesn't really even have consistent accurate guns. So if you're thinking about buying this ship, I would recommend buying Ohio. I know that it's going to get nerfed next patch. The secondaries are going to be far worse than what they are now, but let's be honest, secondaries have kind of been out of meta for a long time now. They've never really been in meta, I would say. They're a fun gimmick to have, but realistically, secondaries are just not usable at tier 10, just because of the ranges. The meta that Wargaming has developed is one of long-range HE spam, and secondaries really don't fit that ticket, let's be honest. So then you're evaluating these ships on their long-range performance, their tankiness, and, AA, that kind of thing. And sure, Slava has better shell arcs, but it has a longer reload, worse guns, as far as overmatch. You got to remember, these are only 406mm guns, so just like I said in my last video about Montana and how Montana feels like it's been power crept, well, this ship only has 406s as well, so you're not overmatching most cruisers. And in fact, in this game, you're not overmatching either of the cruisers in this game. So, at least on their upper belt and deck armor, which is really what matters at longer ranges. It's really hard to snipe the bow of a ship, let alone a cruiser, at 20 kilometers, let's say. So, it's a decent ship, I would say Slava is. Ohio, I would say, is one of the best battleships at tier 10. But Slava's just kind of okay. Now you're going to see this game is one of my better games I've had in this ship. I haven't really had any amazing games in this one where it's like, wow, 300k, like slapping everybody. It's just kind of like that. It's like 7,000 damage a salvo, people angle to you, and you're just left sitting there with these low alpha, low overmatch, or inability to overmatch kind of guns. But the other problem with this ship is the armor. Now, I made a misplay because I hadn't played the ship in a while. I went bow in here. And we're going to take some serious pain here because you actually only have 32mm armored deck, and your upper bow and your stern armor is only 25mm. So all battleships at this tier can overmatch your bow and stern, which is crazy. And as we know, 32mm of armor doesn't exist in the world of HE spammers. So, yeah, you're very vulnerable, I would say. Very vulnerable. You do have good AA. I will say that. The AA is like Kremlin AA, but before it was nerfed. So your secondary and AA mounts stay alive. Unlike the Kremlin, where they instantly die anytime somebody splashes you with a bit of HE. So that's nice, but really I would just rather be tankier than have slightly better AA that basically doesn't really make a difference. I really don't think this ship is great. But if you're thinking you don't want an Ohio and you've done all this research bureau stuff, I would probably suggest looking at a Siegfried or maybe the Paulo Emilio, like just something different that's fun, because this ship is just kind of a mediocre tier 10 battleship. I don't play it very much because I just don't find it very fun. Now, you do get shots that you can do massive damage. Like, it's not like it doesn't happen, but you need to catch people broadside. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen Euro's video on this ship, and he put it perfectly, right? What makes this ship good? It's stupid people. It's people that just sit broadside like this Vermont. And sure, he's at long range, right? So other battleships probably would struggle to land devastating hits, but the instant this guy angles just a little bit, he'd be mitigating all the damage I'm about to do to him. And yeah, that's pretty nasty dispersion, but, you know, it's pretty nasty when you get those hits. That's really cool and all, but I really don't think that this ship is worth it to get those few hits at long range like that. Instead, and you give up the ability to do things at medium ranges, like overmatching cruisers. You give up the ability to tank for your team. You can see how much health we've lost already, and it's barely been the beginning of the game, and we only have 1 million potential damage. So that's kind of my thoughts on which ship you should get. Now, if you do decide this is the ship for you and you want the Slava really badly, how do you got to play it? Well, your goal is to get broadsides. Let's be honest. That's just your entire goal, is I need to find broadsides, because you don't do very much damage against bow-aimed targets. So you need to find places on the map that catch enemy ships out. So if you spawn on one side of the map, you need to think, okay, well, how are people going to get to the capture zone nearest me? What is their path, right? And then you need to go and position yourself to get on the broadside of that path, right? So there's oftentimes people that run up the island chain in G4 and F3, that kind of thing, that island chain down south there. So a good position to be in would be in like the Republic's position right now, assuming people run up that island chain, because you catch their broadside as they're moving up there. You see that Venezia is broadside there. So the Republic is catching that guy's broadside very nicely, even more than I am right now. So positioning yourself in ways like that to catch people's broadside is very good. And you can take reload mod or range mod, 24 kilometers, 28 kilometers. It gives you the option to catch people's broadsides all the way across the map. I get frustrated with this ship a lot, so I take range mod just so I can, when somebody's broadside on the map, I can at least try to shoot their broadside. That's kind of my thoughts on it. But reload mod is probably better. You'll probably have better games with reload mod. I just get really frustrated with the inability to just shoot at somebody's broadside sometimes. Like a Lexington all the way at the back of the map, for example. It's pretty fun to snipe carriers with this thing, but, you know, it happens rarely. And a tier 10 carrier just angles to you and you do no damage. That's the theme, is you do no damage when people angle to you, so you have to find broadsides. So you're seeing me push up this flank, a Cyclone's coming in, so we just have to push in. And Cyclones are where this ship is at its weakest, for sure. If you meet a battleship, even a tier 8 battleship will just eat you alive. Even a ship like Bismarck with 380 guns that have poor accuracy. If you meet a Bismarck in a Cyclone, you probably will lose. Because he'll just angle and bounce your AP, and he'll just smack you through the nose for 10, 11, 15k sometimes if he gets a good salvo. And then secondaries for the Bismarck. But Richelieu is the same thing. Like, this ship is weak up close. And I think that would have been really cool design if the guns were super rewarding at longer ranges. But I really don't see the guns being all that rewarding. I think this is a good example of that. You'll see that we catch this Henry pretty broadside. And I'm not sure how it's possible to get 6 overpens like that, but we managed to do it. We managed to hit everywhere but his Citadel. Or we hit his Citadel and we overpenned right through it. So, which is a really frustrating mechanic for a ship like this, because your high velocity and high pen on your guns means you're actually worse against broadside ships because you overpen so much. You actually, against a broadside ship, you want slightly lower pen, but more importantly, slower velocity, so that the shell takes longer to get through the ship and is more likely to detonate inside the ship. So, in fact, a ship that is supposedly amazing against broadsides is actually not designed to be good against broadsides because its shells are so fast. Sure, it lets you hit easier, but you're going to overpen so many Citadels. And I know I've gotten back into the conversation of, oh, this ship isn't very good, I wouldn't recommend it. But it's just really hard for me to just see what this ship does and how it's designed and not say, I don't recommend this ship. The design is just almost there. It's so close to being a decent ship, but there's just these things that hold it back. So, if you're fighting this ship, just angle. It's that simple. Even in cruisers, just angle, and this thing's going to have a tough time dealing with you. It's really shocking how the damage drops off as soon as you angle to anything. And even if you're getting full pens in this ship, they actually don't feel like you're hitting people that hard. Because you need Citadels to deal big damage in this ship, because that 12,000 damage alpha strike of a single shell hitting a Citadel is basically how you have to deal damage. Your full pens deal pitifully small damage from your AP, and often you'll just overpen with your AP if you're not hitting a big, thick target, like a Kansas, for example. So it is possible to get some pretty big hits against some of these broadside ships, but it requires ships that are very big to get Citadels on. So you're hoping, I guess, for the new American battleships to just sit broadside to you, which, I don't know if hoping people just sit broadside to you is the funnest way to play the game. But if you're wondering how I'm hitting this Kansas, I'm aiming with my map. If you didn't see my aiming video, you should probably check that out. I think it's a pretty solid one. Probably one of my best videos I've made. And yeah, I'm just aiming with the little X on the minimap and trying to line it up with where I think the Kansas is going. So it's not too difficult to do once you get used to it. It does take some practice, but in a Cyclone, it's actually incredibly useful. It is so useful to be able to do this. It's tricky to figure out the lead left to right, but vertically you can line it up pretty much perfectly. The nice thing about these new American battleships is they're so slow that it's pretty easy to just hit them when they're because they're just that slow. You just kind of aim for their Citadel. I actually can't remember if I slapped this guy here. Yeah, we got 2. Okay. You know, like, it's decent damage there, but the thing you have to consider is, would another tier 10 battleship have done the same damage? And I think probably. Maybe even more. 2 Citadels from another tier 10 battleship probably would have done even more damage than that one. That's the problem with this ship. It's pretty good until you start to consider other tier 10 battleships. And yeah, we get slapped pretty hard by the Vermont. I don't think I angled quite properly. You got to consider that this ship does have weaker armor, even on the Citadel, than the Kremlin. I think it's around 70 millimeters less armor than Kremlin armor on your citadel, so it is easier to hit. So that's kind of my, I guess, 6-month follow-up on Slava, or I don't know how long I've had it, but I really don't play this ship much because I just don't enjoy it. That's basically what it comes down to. I enjoy Ohio far more. And if you want to know more about other battleships at tier 10, I've got plenty of videos on that. So thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you have a great day.